Origin just and this is Why Didn't Sweden Join World War II? Short animated documentary by the channel History Matters. Yeah, so we already saw the video about the Denmark. I think Denmark, how Denmark got taken over by Germany in just 6 hours. Like damn, that's small. 6 hours. Imagine that. 6 hours is nothing. People play video game streams for 6 hours nowadays on Twitch or whatever, right? Twitch. That's what they play. Yeah, Twitch. Even on YouTube, I don't know. Are people do people do let's plays on YouTube anymore? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a Twitch now, right? But yeah. So yeah, this Sweden is also kind of like very close to it, right? Especially with the Denmark being occupied, it's damn close to it. So it's surprising how Sweden stayed neutral, like how that wasn't thrown into the middle mix of things, right? But yeah, it's gonna be a fun video. Although History Matters explain things, rather impressively, right? With the jokes and simplistic jokes here and there in just 3 or 4 minute format, which is, damn impressive in itself, right? I mean, when you see some small videos like that, like, yeah, look at that, it's small. But yeah, it takes an effort to make a video small, right? Because you can't cram all the right information in that small period, but apparently they can. So that's what it is.
Throughout the Second World War in Europe, there were many neutral nations who, despite their government's intentions, were unable to stay so. While some like Finland were able to resist, others like Sweden managed to avoid fighting. Given Sweden's immense natural resources, notably iron, it's even more surprising that it was left alone when the powers around it were fighting for their continued existence. Not only that, but Sweden would have been a valuable ally to whichever side it joined, which raises the question, why didn't Sweden join World War II and how did it manage to maintain its neutrality and deter aggressors? So, when the war broke out, Sweden declared itself to be a non-belligerent nation. This shouldn't be surprising since Sweden had been a neutral nation since after the Napoleonic Wars. This was mostly because it was forced to hand over Swedish Pomerania to Prussia.
Yeah, so obviously Sweden would have been a natural ally to any side it joined. So why did it stay neutral? For that fact, because of that iron ore resources and how they would be valuable to any side, that's why they stayed neutral. Because imagine if they've joined Axis. Allied would be pissed off and just become even over time they would have been more pissed off at it because of that reason. Imagine they joined allies, right? I mean, Hitler would have lost his mind because of all the iron resources, and would have bombed the shit out of Sweden if more than any other country, right? So if a country is valuable because of a strategic position or some ideology, it's a different thing. If a country is valuable for its resources during the wartime, they're going to be fucked. So I can kind of see why they decided to stay neutral.
And thus had nothing binding them to mainland continental politics. Thus, by 1939, Sweden had over a century of neutral foreign policy stances behind it. It was governed at this point by Per Albin Hansson, who was doing everything in his power to keep fascist or communist sympathisers away from power. His government was a coalition of 4 major parties, and their foreign policy goals at first were simply don't get involved in the war. Yet, as many of you will be aware, the war soon came to its neighbours. Finland fought the Winter War against the USSR, and in 1940, both Denmark and Norway were conquered by Germany. For the Finnish-Soviet War, the Swedish were sympathetic.
Oh my god, I'm not gonna lie, this makes it more and more impressive. Look at that. The whole region is Nazi-occupied. Denmark, obviously, Norway too. But Finland, obviously, we know about the all the Finnish side of it, right? With the what was it, White Death? What was his name? With the sniper and everything, right? That fight against Soviet. So all this extreme fighting is happening around this time. And Sweden, look at how close it is to Germany in this major map. It's really surprising that it remained neutral.
For the Finnish-Soviet War, the Swedish were sympathetic to Finland, and there were even some who called for Sweden to formally get involved. Hansson resisted, and so Sweden covertly gave money and weapons to the Finns, and roughly 12,000 Swedes crossed the border to help in non-combat roles. As for Denmark and Norway, Sweden wasn't willing to go to such lengths to help them resist Germany, and this was largely for economic reasons. Sweden exported masses of iron ore to Germany throughout the war, and given that everyone else had been conquered, there was no other customers. In case you're wondering, the reason why Germany kept buying the iron instead of simply conquering Sweden was that Hitler assumed that the Allies wouldn't bomb a neutral country. So the only reason that Sweden was able to stay neutral was that it made concessions to both sides. For example, when
look, if it's because they were supplying Hitler and they didn't want to stop, because as soon as they stop, they know Hitler's gonna bomb them, that's understandable. If they supplied them because they knew that that's the only way to make money while everybody else suffer, that's kind of fucked up. But then again, that's what's up with the geopolitics even today, right? I mean, you can't really know their purpose, or maybe it's both of them. Maybe it was both of them purpose, right? Like they wanna make money, even though people are suffering. At the same time, they also are thinking like, okay, even if we stop, Hitler would bomb us, I guess. So yeah, whenever you study geopolitics, you realize that morality rarely comes into play. It's always what's pros and cons, regardless of what.
Germany conquered Norway, the Swedish government allowed German troops to travel through the country. They also allowed German troops to transit the country to Finland in 1941 when Germany invaded the Soviet Union.
Damn.
This actually led to what's called the Midsummer Crisis, where ministers panicked over what to do because they really didn't want to be seen aiding the Germans in the war with the USSR. In fact, Sweden's King Gustav V said that if the Germans weren't accommodated, then he personally would not be willing to bear the consequences. And so they allowed German troops to cross, and throughout the war, over 2 million German soldiers did so. Of course, Sweden couldn't just give in to what the Germans wanted, since at that point they may as well have just been a member of the Axis. And as such, Sweden was sure to aid the Allies too. For example, it took thousands of Jewish refugees from Denmark and all over Europe, as well as giving refuge to socialists and political dissidents. And furthermore, Sweden also took to covertly training Norwegian troops in its territory. They were also active in conducting espionage against Germany and fed troop movements and industrial information to the British and the Americans. And in the end, Sweden's neutrality in the war carries a confusing legacy. Avoiding occupation and bombing was the priority for the government, and they did achieve that. They did so by facilitating German troop movements and providing it with valuable resources with which it could power its war machine. That said, what real choice did Sweden have?
Seriously?
Denmark and Norway were conquered for reasons of strategy, and the Germans would have happily done the same to Sweden.
Alright, seriously. I can see the two sides of people thinking about this, and I understand both sides, don't get me wrong, but if you're thinking like, okay, you can't really, sail on two boats, right? You have to choose one, or whatever the fuck the analogy goes. Or in the end, it really doesn't matter. It did help Germany with the resources. It did help Germany with, with passage. It did help Germany by, feeding them resources in a way that hurt other countries and they didn't care about it. You can see all these things like you have to choose a side. There is no other way anyway, right? It's either this or that. There is no middle ground. And in the end, they kind of helped Nazis, Germany in World War II, do bad things all around. So they are to blame. You can't think that. And, that might be true. But what I think is, in the end, like he said, what choice did Sweden had, right? Let's be honest. This is we're talking about Hitler, right? Germany in World War II. They took down Denmark in 6 hours? That's nothing, right? Imagine that. Right? What the fuck Sweden was going to do against Germans at that point? So, certain decisions you could think were questionable, but in the end, overall, this is the best thing they could have done for themselves, right? I mean, they didn't get bombed, right? And they didn't just help Germany, they also helped the Allies too with the spying and things. Since they were kind of acting like, Germany's allies with the resources and passes and shit, they can also get closer to them and do spying and provide spy information. So in the end, there is nothing else Sweden could have done. If Sweden would have resisted, it would have been bad all around for them.
Sweden was sure to balance this with aiding the Allies and giving refuge to Europe's persecuted. In the end, Sweden stayed neutral by doing just enough to avoid the ire of both sides.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with extra thanks to my Patreon supporters, which you can see on screen. And with an extra special thanks to James Bisonet, David Archaeologist.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously what Sweden did was about right. This happens all the time. Even today's world is happening a lot. Anytime there is a geopolitics involved, yeah, you have to see all sides of it, right? You can't just point blank look at the moral thing like this is, immoral. You have to, no, that's not how things work. If Sweden had not done this, Germany would have easily bombed them, very easily. They are just there. I mean, imagine they just threatened Denmark with the planes and that's it. Denmark kind of surrendered immediately. Sweden would have faced the same thing, and if they had not surrendered, they would have bombed the shit out of them. Do you think Hitler didn't have patience for it? Come on, they would have easily done that. That would have been bad. So I guess it makes sense. They had resources, everybody needed it. That gives you a unique position where you can stay neutral from both sides and still help in both sides, or you can resist from both sides, and one of them sides fucks you up really badly, and then you give up resources. So I guess this was the right decision. Right, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.